The legislation before us. Senator Fazio.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise today in strong opposition of the resolution before us today. Across our history in this country, working people have rallied around square deals and new deals, but this proposed contract is a raw deal for the working people of this state, for the middle class of this state, and it's a raw deal on top of many others that were made before it in this state. If people watching across Connecticut remember one or two numbers about this spending deal, it should be that it is a $1.9 billion increase in spending that equates to $1,330 for the average family in Connecticut in higher taxes over the next 4 years. There is no such thing as a free lunch. Every single dollar we spend here will have to be borne by regular, everyday people in the form of higher taxes or cuts to vital social services. And if you haven't noticed, around this building, when the opportunity comes to reduce spending that's in excess, it never actually happens. I think there is a feeling among regular middle-class people and families in my district and across the state that if you're in the government class in this state, if you have a lobbyist representing you, then you're taken care of in Connecticut. But if you're regular everyday people without direct connection to the state government, you work hard, then you're left footing the bill. You're not at the table, then you're on the menu. And that's exactly been the common practice in Connecticut across many years, to the point that today, the average middle-class family making, say, $80,000 a year, which is the median income in Connecticut, is paying, according to WalletHub, the second highest tax burden of any state in the country. And then on top of that, our state faces the highest long-term taxpayer liability of any state in the country, that those very people will have to pay in even higher taxes into the future. Why is that? Well, people in leadership in this state government for many years have said that that is because of the failed policies, the poor decisions of people in the past. But as we speak, we are repeating those very same mistakes, including in this resolution before us. Kicking the can down the road, ignoring the problems before us, and imposing more costly burdens and spending on regular everyday people in our state. $40,000 in raises per state employee is what this equates to over 4 years. That'll be divided out to $1,330 roughly per household in the state in higher taxes over 4 years. 15% is roughly the pay increase over the 3-year period. That is costly by any measure. There are no two ways around it. But not only is it costly, not only is it an anvil around the neck of regular workers, regular families in this state whose economy has been hurting for a long time, but it's also not fair. It's also not fair. The good senator, Senator Austin, referenced in her articulate remarks a study by the American Enterprise Institute, which is a thorough and thoughtful study of every state and public sector employee compensation across the country. And yes, indeed, it points to the fact that Connecticut state employees have wages roughly the same, maybe 5% lower than the average private sector employee of similar qualifications, similar background in the state. But the study also says that those very same workers receive about 3 times the level of pension and health benefits than the similar comparable private sector worker in Connecticut. Altogether, the study concludes that there is a 33% pay premium for similar government workers in Connecticut as compared to the private sector workers who are left footing the bill. This contract not only does nothing to ameliorate that inequity, but it exacerbates it. A similar study by the same institute found that from the 20 years from 1998 to 2017, that those private sector workers, the regular private sector worker in Connecticut, received only a 6% increase in pay. Only a 6% increase in pay over 20 years. Our state is hurting, the regular families in our state are hurting. But the public sector worker, the government worker, received a 77% increase in compensation over the same period of time. That's inequitable and that's unsustainable. That's not good for anybody in the long run. We want fairness. We want a square deal, as some might say. But this, again, is a raw deal that compounds many other mistakes of the past. It also hinders the public interest in other legitimate ways. Senator Minor was really on to something in this bill because it is being sold as a means of preventing employee retirements for people who are towards the end of their careers. But $2,500 of the $3,500 bonus that was going to the government employees is given to people who have already retired. And the retroactive pay increase is going to people who have already retired. And that increase in pay is also pensionable on top of that. That in no way is a use of resources that will stop a wave of employee retirements, which is a reasonable interest that this state government should have. Obviously, we are very thankful for so many workers, both in the private sector and public sector, who have worked very hard over the past couple of years during the pandemic. But this contract is also not addressing hazard pay. This is not a hazard pay issue. It is not a COVID pay issue. It is a long-term contractual and economic arrangement beyond those matters. And so it cannot be justified on that basis either. And it includes these random, superfluous giveaways and bad practices beyond the simple economic. Basically, it excludes members of government, managerial employees of government from sitting in on union organizational meetings. It's basically a similar concept to the captive audience in reverse that we debated yesterday. It requires that the state government provide a list to public sector unions of people who chose voluntarily not to join them. And also, in the past few weeks that since this deal has been announced, there isn't even a text searchable document of the 1,700-page contract anywhere online. There is a scanned version of it online that's not searchable, that's not in text. How is that transparent? How is that justifiable? How does a $24 billion a year operation, the Connecticut state government, not even able to put a $1.9 billion spending deal in text on its website or anywhere on the internet for the general public to see and learn about and read? But finally, I do not believe that this is a good deal for government workers in the long run either. The fact of the matter is, in this state, we face a $100 billion long-term government liability that will be borne by everyone eventually. Our arrangements, our employment arrangements with our fine government workers must take that into account and ensure that our arrangements are sustainable in the long run, are affordable in the long run, that we can afford to pay them out as we promise years from now. God forbid, if we do not do anything in the near term, then many years down the line, we risk the possibility of much larger haircuts for people who are counting on promises that we agree to in this chamber today. That would be the worst possible outcome, but that is what we are setting up these workers for years down the line because we refuse to acknowledge the reality that we are making promises that we cannot afford to keep in the long run, that we fail to confront the problems, the mistakes that were made in our recent history, and we actually compound them. We want a good and fair deal for everyone in Connecticut, for our public sector workers, for our regular, everyday taxpayers who are taxed far too much already. This bill, this contract is not only not that, but it compounds every mistake that has been made in this Capitol building over the past 3 decades and will continue to make Connecticut more unaffordable for everyday people. I strongly urge rejection of this contract and that our state go back to the drawing board. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Senator Fazio. Will you